All right, let's dive in. Today, we're unpacking a really powerful idea from the Berean Project. It's all about what happens when a church, well, when it starts to feel more like a machine than a living, breathing story. We're going to see how just a simple shift in how we look at things can, believe it or not, change absolutely everything. So let's get into it. This is a heck of a place to start, right? Most churches don't choose their culture, they inherit it. Just think about that for a second. It kind of suggests that all those unseen forces that shape our communities, the values, the habits, the little unspoken rules, they might just be accidental. They're just there, passed down over the years, but maybe never, ever intentionally chosen. So, what does that inherited culture actually look like in practice? Well, that brings us to the first big concept here, the idea of the church as a machine. And this isn't just a metaphor. It's more like a diagnosis of something that's super common, but a lot of the time it goes completely unnoticed. It's kind of amazing. The modern church can get incredibly good at just keeping itself running. Week in and week out, the gears are turning. Services happen right on schedule, like clockwork. The programs are all maintained. The whole operation just works efficiently, faithfully, predictably. And hey, from the outside, it all looks pretty successful, doesn't it? But here's the kicker. What if that very efficiency is actually the problem? What if all that focus on maintaining the system, on keeping the machine running smoothly, what if it's causing us to miss the much deeper, much more beautiful invitation? The invitation to join the story God is actually telling in the world. And this right here, it just frames that core tension perfectly. Think about it. A machine, it just needs power to run. It follows instructions. Simple. But a story is a whole different beast. It doesn't need power, it needs trust. And it doesn't just run, it thrives. But only when people actually choose to jump in, to participate, and to find their own place in that narrative. Okay, so if we're at risk of becoming a machine, what's the alternative? Where do we go from here? This leads us to that powerful, often invisible force that really decides which path a church goes down. And that force is its culture. I mean, a church can have the most amazing, inspiring mission statement you've ever read. It can have a perfect list of beliefs right there on its website. But honestly, those things alone are not what makes a community truly come alive and thrive. The real difference maker is something way, way deeper. And yeah, you guessed it. That difference maker is culture. It's the secret sauce. We hear about it all the time in the business world, right? Companies that people are just dying to work for because their culture is so incredible. So the real question is, why aren't more churches deliberately, intentionally building one? Instead, this absolutely vital element just gets left to chance, inherited. So how do we build this kind of culture? Well, the answer isn't to just roll out another new program or to wordsmith a better mission statement. No, it's about a fundamental shift in our internal mindset, our posture. Not to be clear, this isn't about blowing everything up or rebelling against all structure. Not at all. The real alternative to just maintaining the machine is a simple but really profound change in what the Berean Project calls our posture. And this is so key. Posture isn't some checklist of things you have to do, it's about who we are becoming. It's a state of spiritual readiness. So many of us say we're waiting on God, but what if? What if God is actually waiting on us, waiting for us to get ready for what He wants to do? This really captures that whole internal journey perfectly. It's about moving away from just surviving Sundays, we've all been there, and moving to something more active, like sharpening our spears. It's this idea of being like Nehemiah's watchman on the wall, actively preparing ourselves for something sacred to happen. Okay, and this change in posture, it gets us right to the heart of the matter. It's all about making a fundamental shift. A shift away from a culture that's just about obedience to one that's built on deep, profound trust. Now, this is such a powerful thought and a tricky one. Obedience, of course, it's a good thing. But if we're not careful, a focus on only following the rules can quietly, subtly replace that much bigger, more dynamic calling to actually participate in God's story. And you can really see the two mindsets laid out side by side here. On one hand, you have faith as compliance. It's where you treat scripture like a rule book, and your job is to just keep the system going. But on the other hand, you have faith as participation. That's where you see scripture as this grand, sweeping narrative, and faith is your personal invitation to find your role in that incredible story.
So, this really brings up a deeply personal question for all of us, doesn't it? I mean, it's one thing to feel like you have to show up, right? An obligation. But it's something else entirely to feel a genuine sense of excitement and purpose. So, let me just ask you, are you truly excited about your place in your church's future?
So, where does all this leave us? If the big goal is to build this culture of trust and participation, then what in the world is the first step? Well, it turns out the path forward isn't something that's prescribed. It's something that's communal.
And this is absolutely essential to get. You can't just implement culture like it's a new policy memo. It's not something that gets handed down from the top. No, it has to be discerned together as an ecclesia, the gathered people, all wrestling honestly with the question, what is our inherited culture actually shaping us into?
So the work doesn't start with this big rush to fix everything. It actually begins with something much quieter: observation. It means taking the time to really listen, to see clearly what's already there, to just notice. Notice what your community protects, what it repeats over and over, and what it instinctively defends without even thinking. And that all leads us to this final, really provocative question that kind of releases this whole conversation to you. See, this isn't about having all the answers. It's about gathering with other people, sharing what you've observed honestly, and then starting a whole new kind of dialogue with this one simple but incredibly powerful question. Here's what I noticed. What did you notice?